In the journal cover assignment, you're going to get a good feel for how to overlap shapes, how to work with different shapes, how to play with different opacities, and we're going to learn a little bit about graphic styles too. Um, there's some minimum requirements for this, and there's also a lot of freedom to create some really interesting looks. And I think if you look at some of the examples of the journal cover assignment, you'll get a good feel for some of the things that you can do with this assignment. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started now. I have Illustrator open. I'm going to open up a new file, and I want this to be letter size, but I want it to be a landscape, or sorry, I want it to be a portrait setting. So portrait setting, my width is going to be 8.5 inches, my height is going to be 11 inches, and we're going to go with that. Okay, we're in pretty good shape. I'm going to go ahead and save this now that I have it open. Again, I am going to save it into my folder for the class. Let's go back to that. This is going to be on the T drive for you, and I'm going to go ahead and name this because it's a new assignment in the order that I'm going to put in O2 journal cover, and I'm going to open up that folder. I'm going to save it in there, my first initial, my last name, journal cover. All right. Again, I'll just go with the defaults on that. Okay, we've saved our document, and now we're ready to get to work. Throughout, as I'm working, I'm just going to keep hitting Control S to make sure that I continue to save what I've done. The first thing we want to do is come up with a color scheme for our journal cover. To do this, I'm going to open up this swatches panel over here. It's one that looks like this. If you don't see it there, though, go under the window menu, you'll find swatches, but here it is for me. Now, in the swatches panel, I'm looking at some default swatches that are already there, but I want to find a nice mix of colors that I think are going to work well together. And Illustrator has a great way of telling you what colors, some advanced colors that they think are going to work well together. So you can see in all these areas, we're looking at different swatches. You can look at just about any of these other than, make sure, don't use the gradients. But let's look, for example, at the art histories, because those are some of my favorite kind of options for swatches. And I'm going to look at the Baroque swatches. So it gives me these nice mixes of colors that Illustrator is saying, hey, these are colors that are going to work pretty well together. And what I want you to do is I want you to pick for this assignment one group of swatches, and you're going to use only those colors for this assignment. So make sure you pick a group of colors, a folder of colors that you like. So I'm going to look through all these folders, and I'm going to look for one grouping that I just really think will work well. And I am kind of liking this. Maybe this one right here. So in order to move this group of colors over to my little swatch panel, I'm just going to click on that folder and watch. Right over here now, I have that group of swatches. I just clicked on the folder and it just put them right there. The nice thing now is I have an easy way to get to all of them. All right. Our next step, we're moving on to step 3 in the instructions, is that I'm going to use some shapes. I'm going to overlap some shapes to begin to create my design. Now, there's a couple options on shapes. When I hold down on this, when I look at these, everything underneath the rectangle tool, obviously I've got the rectangle. I've got this rounded rectangle, and there's some things that these will do that you just have to kind of see to understand how to use it. So while I am actively drawing the rounded rectangle, and I'm still holding my finger down the mouse, I haven't let go, if I hold the up arrow, look, it just got a little curvier. Now, if I hold the down arrow, it's going to start to straighten out those edges. So I have a lot of ability to manipulate the way that shape is going to look. Let's try another one. I am going to try this now with the polygon tool. Whoop. As I'm actively drawing this, if I hold the up arrow, it adds sides. As I hold the down arrow down, I take away sides. Okay, so that's a way that you can adjust shapes while you're drawing them. Let's try one more. Let's try the star tool, because this one always this is probably one of the handier ones. All right, as I'm drawing with the star tool, if I hold down the up arrow, look how I can add tons and tons of points to this. Or hold down the down arrow while I'm actively drawing it, and I take those points away. I can also adjust how those points move out from the center of the circle. So right now I'm holding down the Alt key and pulling my mouse out, which is kind of an interesting effect, right? Um, and I can make some other adjustments there. All right. I can, if I hold down instead of the Alt key, if I hold down the Control key, see how it starts to lock those points in the middle, and then I get a completely different look. So this becomes a really powerful way to be able to adjust those shapes as you're drawing. And think of some of these shapes as kind of basic starting points where you can add a bunch of unique shapes together to really create an interesting design. You can create a whole scene. You can create something that's more graphic. It's really up to you. But I'm going to start by creating some shapes and overlapping it. I want to make this star red, and as you can see, I clicked on this, but I'm not seeing the red, and that's because it's applying to my stroke. If you look over here on the side, whatever is on top, the stroke or the fill, is what's going to have the color applied to it. So if I want to make sure that I can go and change my fill, and using this command over here, I can always click on this to bring it up to the top, and then I can change it there. Or I can always just come back up here to change it. I'm going to spend a little bit of time getting all this adjusted. One quick tip here, I'm thinking that I'm going to use this star a bunch of times, and rather than redraw that star every time, I'm going to quickly duplicate it by holding down the Alt key, clicking on it, and dragging. And you can see when I do that, I start to make a bunch of copies of it. Okay, I'm going to spend just a minute making some adjustments and we'll pick up from there. Okay, you can see now I've duplicated these stars out more. I've added more of them coming across my page. I've played a little bit with the size on them. You'll have much more time to spend on really perfecting yours and looking for ideas that inspire you. But I'm going to go ahead and start to apply some of these different colors from my swatches. So I've got this one that's blue, but this star right here, I'm gonna use that red color too because I think that's really pretty, and this brown as well. Just kind of mix those colors in as I go. Maybe make this one a different shade as well. Let's see. Maybe not. Maybe I'll leave that one blue. And where these stars overlap, one of the settings that I'm going to adjust, and I'm moving on to the back page of those journal cover instructions. I'm going to look at step 6 here where it talks about changing the opacity so we can see the overlapping shapes. So I'm going to zoom in here for just a second. So I've got these are basically solid shapes sitting on top of each other right now. But what we're going to do is we're going to lower the opacity so that we can start to see through them. So you can see now, as soon as I lower the opacity of this blue star to 90%, I could start to see this this red star underneath. Okay, and I'm just going to mix this in. Just maybe this star will be, maybe this will be 80%, but this one might be 70. Maybe I leave some of them at 100%, but it's going to. I'm just going to kind of mix them up just so we can get a feel for what it looks like when we make some of these changes. So I'm going to change these. Change this one too. Okay. And you can really get a sense where these stars overlap then. Let's see. And now I'm going to add a background color to this so that it's not just, plain as can be. So I'm going to go back over here and get my rectangle tool. I just clicked and held down on that star to get that, Click and hold down on that star to bring those options back up. So I'll draw a rectangle from one corner to the next. I'm going to make it this creamy color. I'm going to send that rectangle to back. So I'm going to right click, arrange, send it back. Note that shortcut there. If you want to go ahead and start learning that, that's a handy one. Okay, I'm starting to create my image here. The next thing I am going to start to play with is adding on a graphic style. And so I'm going to go ahead and add my, well actually let's add our text on. I'm going to go to step 7. I'm going to go ahead and draw out a box for my name. Let me highlight that there. I'm going to make it, big enough that I'm going to be able to read it. I want to position it in a good spot on my journal. The hard thing is, if I leave it here, very likely when we put these journals together, we have the bolts running through them, it could get cut off, and you don't want that to happen. So probably I'm going to position it over here. I might even play with that positioning a little bit more as, with more time, just to make sure it's in the best, most readable spot. But there we go. I'm going to play with maybe play with a different font. Look for one that I really like. This is one that I don't know, I've just always been a fan of this font. It's nice and simple. But, try out different fonts. Now, to change your font, you've got to make sure your text is selected. I knew that one, so I just typed it in. But if you don't know the name of the font, if you select this text and then you come up here, I've kind of got that little box selected, I can just arrow down now and look for different fonts, something that maybe fits my personality. I'll want to pick something that's nice and readable. Maybe I'll go with this little typewriter type looking font, but here we go. I'm going to wait to change the color for just a minute, because one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to add a graphic style to my name. Graphic styles are these really cool things. You can add graphic styles to your name. You can add graphic styles to like other aspects of your design. But I am going to, we're going to look at how to do that. I'm pretty sure this one isn't going to be already open in one of your tabs. So I'm going to go up to Window and then Graphic Styles. Whoop. I just lost, well, that was strange. Let's try that again. Window, Graphic Styles. Okay, here we go. All right, just like with other things in Illustrator, there's some graphic styles that are already here. You can see if I click on that, it's applied that graphic style to it, but there's other options in here. Let's look at the neon effects, for example. See what happens when you apply that. You can see my name takes on this neon glow, which doesn't really necessarily go with the style of the font, so it's changed the color, but I can also come back up here, keep that kind of neon glow look to it, but change the color. Oh, here we go. Keep that neon glow, but we can try to change the color. It works better on some graphic styles than on others. Yeah, that's not doing much for us right now. But we can play with different looks this way. I'm not going to do the neon glow because there are other graphic styles that I like better. But depending on your look, that may be the perfect graphic style for you. I am going to look at maybe some of these scribble effects, because I think these are kind of fun looks. So let's try applying. Let's try some of these different scribble effects. You can see they have very different looks when you apply them, and I can change the color on them. So I can do this kind of funky little color change to them. Let's do that one. Let's try that one as a different color. Yeah. And that way you can kind of see it's got the scribble with the background being a solid color. It takes a little bit of playing with to figure out exactly what's going to work well for your design. But in every case, I'm going back through and I'm making sure it fits with the tone of my design. We've probably played with enough of these at this point that we can move on and try something different. But you're going to get something that's interesting and yet still readable. Now, I applied my graphic style there. I could just as easily apply that graphic style instead to one of my shapes. And that would change up the look a little bit. But what I'm looking for in the end is that you've used those graphic styles, that your name is on there, that it's easy to read, that you have some overlapping opacities so that I know that you understand how you can utilize that effect of being able to see through something. And I want to see some of your creativity, and I want to see you spend some time and take this project in different directions. So look around the room at the examples we have, be inspired, and have fun, and we look forward to seeing what you create. One last word. When it comes time to print, this is going to be the same advice I'm probably going to give you every time, but I'm going to go ahead and repeat it for just a little bit. When you go to print, make sure, in addition to making sure you have the right printer selected, under scaling, say fit to page, so that you don't lose a big chunk of your design. All right, let's move on.